Welcome to Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, a podcast for people who are ready to clear the physical, the mental, and the emotional clutter that's been weighing them down. I'm Melanie Cohen, your host, coach, and guide. Each week, we talk about the clutter you can see and the clutter you can't. The stuff in your home, the noise in your head, the expectations, habits, and unmade decisions that quietly drain your energy. This isn't about perfection or minimalism. It's about creating space for what actually matters in this season of your life. Let's lighten up together, starting now. Welcome back to another episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free. I'm Melanie, and I'm your gal who loves clutter. I have a special guest with me today. We call her Tag, but her given name is Tag Gustafson, and she is a lifelong visual artist and creative professional with over 30 years of customer service experience and 28 plus years in management. She is the owner of Wow Factor Virtual Solutions, where she blends creativity and strategy to help business owners elevate their online presence through website design, maintenance, and personalized digital solutions. Growing up in Minnesota, spent countless hours sketching on snowy days and during long family road trips. Early moments that shaped her artistic path. Over the years, she has explored numerous art mediums, building a diverse portfolio showcased through her brand Artistic Solutions Now. As a forever ambassador, Tag also specializes in helping individuals and families preserve their most precious memories. She provides expert guidance on digitization, permanent cloud storage, and long-term archival solutions that protect photos, videos, and stories for generations to come. Whether she's designing a website, creating artwork, or preserving family legacies, brings passion, precision, and heartfelt commitment to every project. Tag, thank you for being here today.
I'm so excited. It's great getting to know you, and I am excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. So there are so many reasons why I have you here at the end of the day. This is the podcast about clutter. And I think as we navigated everything that you were talking about, there's clutter in all of those areas, specifically when it comes to photo, video storage, and other kinds of legacy work, which was really the number one reason that I wanted you to come today. But maybe you can explore a little deeper for us how you got where you are, why you do what you do.
I was a regular 9 to 5 working at a major retailer for about 13 years before COVID hit. Previous to that, I had started my own online business with my artwork because I do spray paint art to relax for the fun of it. So I had learned how to build websites and stuff with that. So when COVID hit, my mother had just had a kidney infection that went into her bloodstream. And so when COVID hit, I couldn't take the chance of bringing anything home to her because her immune system was already on overload taking care of that issue. So I had to find something else to do. So I um, started taking courses and built my own online business, building websites and stuff. It's expanded from there. If we go back to like 2010, I started archiving my family photos. Because previously, in 2006, my dad had disappeared. Moved back in 2007 to help my mom with the family farm. I'm the fourth generation to live here now, so that's kind of cool. And then when I moved back here, both my grandparents on both sides of the family had passed away. And you know how when your parents pass away, the stuff gets divided up. And a lot of family photo albums and stuff like that came to our house from both sides of the family. So, my dad had started, trying to categorize them and store them, but back in that time, it was a lot harder. So, in 2010, I started to categorize, family photos and stuff. I had boxes cardboard boxes with photos in. I had at least 10 or 15 totes that had family photos and albums and still in the frames that came from my grandparents' house. So I started with cardboard boxes and I started scanning them in. And fast forward to 2019, our basement flooded and I had scanned in manually, one at a time. There was around 5,000 photos from both sides of my family history. So I had scanned all of them in. And so when the basement flooded, I did not lose those memories. So I'm very grateful for that.
There's a lot to unpack there. um, Something that I talk about every once in a while, certainly not everybody has heard the story, but my father was an addict. And when he left to go to rehab, the time that it worked, he had been to rehab many times. By that time, my parents had gone bankrupt. They lost their home, lost his car, lost his business. He was self employed. And in the months leading up to that, my father had been selling family things for drug money. And one of the things that disappeared was my baby album. Now, I don't know I don't know who was buying a baby album with a baby that didn't belong to them. But so there are a lot of childhood pictures that I don't know where they are. And maybe at some point, as we clean through my mother's stuff and my father's stuff, maybe we'll come across some of them, but not the depth of what was in that big, beautiful album that my parents spent time and energy putting together. This happened 35 years ago. So it's not like we didn't have the digital option. Like, I don't wish that experience on anybody. But when you think about digitizing things like that, then you don't have to worry about fire, flood, losing things. So I do hear that and find that to be very powerful. Okay, so let's backtrack. Your father disappeared on a hunting trip. Tell me more.
Yes. My dad has been a hunter all his life. Um, we in November every year, we have like 20 hunters that descend on our house. And because my dad was just so into hunting and he hunted for many, many years. And dad was also a survival instructor in the Air Force. For about 10 years, him and my mom's uncle would go out to Wyoming and elk hunt. And they had done that for like 10 years. My mom's uncle had passed away and his son was out going out with my dad. And in 2006, my dad and my uncle's son and my one of my other cousins had went out to Wyoming hunting at like a base camp, and they'd go out during the day and come back to camp. One night my dad just did not make it back to camp. And so when my dad and my uncle had started this, they had set up a protocol. And so my dad had told my cousins and the protocol, and so they followed the protocol that had been set up 10 years earlier and waited till 2 hours after sunrise so someone could get back to camp in case they just couldn't make it back at night. They could come back in the morning, and he didn't come back, so they called the authorities, and they ended up doing one of the biggest manhunts they've done in Wyoming history to that point. And so they used horseback and ATVs and walking through the woods. The Air Force sent a small plane to scour the area to see if they could see anything. They used every resource and they did like a 10-day search. And they never found anything he had on him at the time he disappeared. No shreds of clothing, so that he'd been attacked by a bear or something like that. Because it was on Elk Mountain in Wyoming, and it was one of the roughest terrains around, very mountainous, very forested. So it was very hard searching, but they did one of the biggest searches that they've done up until that point, and they couldn't find anything. So there's been a couple of searches. The following spring closed down the search because they had a major blizzard coming in and had to shut down the mountain. So in the spring, they tried to do that again. They used cadaver dogs and man trackers and scent dogs, and some of the scent dogs and trackers for a couple years after would take their dogs out there for training to see if they could find something else, but they never did. About 7 years after he disappeared, they did find his rifle, but it was leaning up against a tree. Anybody who knows survival, if you're on a mountain, that's the last thing you're gonna put down. You're not gonna walk away from your gun.
I'm a city girl, and I think I know that.
Yeah. So, they did find his rifle, and they did another search in that area, but there's still been nothing else that's ever been found that has to do with what might have happened to him.
So again, I'm a city girl. So you tell this story, and for me, it's like listening to or watching a movie, a TV show, the news, like things that are just so alien to my own experience. What does that feel like?
It feels like a really bad movie at the time. It was just like
That
being in a daze. I mean, we have this, like, old '70s phone on the wall that had like the big orange phone with the dial rotor, you know. We have that on the wall and it had broken. And so the ringer was like really loud. We had people from the local town, our small town, we live on a farm. It's a small town. We had people from the town stopping by all the time. We had cousins from both sides of the family that, like, pretty much lived at our house for those 10 days during the search, and every time the phone rang, everybody would just stop dead because they were afraid that it was an answer, and they were afraid it wasn't an answer. It was just really bizarre, hard to explain. It's like you just keep moving and doing the next thing. So, yeah, it was like being part of a really bad movie that didn't have a happy ending.
So I have to ask, does that mean that Cope is given up on at this point, especially how they found his gun in particular?
We may never have the answers. My family chooses to look at it in the way that dad was doing something that he loved with people that he loved. And like my grandmother had Alzheimer's and she spent 12 years in a nursing home and just not being herself. And, dad was doing something that he loved with people that he loved. We may not know what happened, but we can be grateful that he was doing something that he loved with people that he loves.
It sounds like a very healthy approach to letting him go or allowing him to be released as opposed to constantly waiting for either the phone call or a knock at the door or whatever it is. Okay, so I want to talk about clutter a little bit with respect to that because when I do talk about clutter, it could be anything. It could be social media, 24-hour news cycle, digital clutter, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about. It could be my grandmother's things that she left behind. It could be clothing in a multitude of sizes. It could be a pile of paper. It could be like a million things. But what makes us hang on to things comes from so many different places. For someone who lost a family member early, like your father died before his time or your father disappeared before his time. Often that leads to people hanging on to things that belonged to him, things that reminded you of him, whether it was a picture or a video or a shirt or something like that. I am not implying that you hung on to your dad's things, but rather, how do you not do that given the situation?
Well, I think there's several things that have affected that. As part of the healing process, my mother took my dad's clothes. When you're growing up, you remember your dad wearing this outfit for Easter or whatever. And so she took all of those memorable shirts and pants and stuff, and she made blankets for all of us out of the squares. So we still have the memories of that really ugly shirt that he used to wear, with the Hawaiian print that, drove you insane.
Married to a man who grew up in Hawaii. You have no idea how many Aloha shirts are in our house. But I hear you.
So I mean there's many different things like that can be that we did as part of our healing process. When the basement flooded, that really cleaned out a lot of clutter because we had to reseal our basement. So I had to go through pretty much everything in our basement. And my dad grew up as a child of the Depression and they held on to everything. And he was an old school farmer. So he saved everything. He'd save old broken tools because he might be able to use it to fix something else. He was a real old school farmer where he fixed everything himself. And so, like, when I cleaned out the basement, I think I threw away like three or four curling irons and about four blow dryers because there's four girls in our family. So dad was always going to fix these curling irons for us or whatever.
I love that.
So I got rid of a lot of stuff with that. We went through a lot of stuff in the basement and I threw an entire dumpster of stuff away. Um, but when it came to his office, I had trouble with that.
Mm,
So when it came to his office, I just put it in boxes and put it on a shelf because it was kind of during COVID that I was going through all these things and my sisters couldn't come home because of mom's health issues and COVID. And so when I came to his office, I couldn't throw anything else because I had thrown a whole bunch of stuff from growing up. Those old papers that you saved or the little programs you have that have your name in it from school, basketball games, or whatever. So I had thrown so much by the time I got to his office, I'm just like, I can't do it. So I just boxed it up and put it away. So my sisters are going to eventually come in and help me go through that stuff. But yeah, so it's kind of in stages that I've been going through stuff. And it's, I don't know, part of the healing process, I guess, for me.
100%. First of all, I have a quilt and my daughter has a quilt made of t-shirts. It's like, sports and college and high school and concerts and that was a great way to eliminate a lot of stuff into something usable. What a great thing to have created it out of his clothing. And love it or hate the things that he was wearing. I'm sure that there's a lot of really good feels associated with seeing it, touching it, using it, and taking time in the process is so okay. Like, if you had his things and you were limited in space, you would probably be forced to go through it faster. But the healing process, I had a grief coach on, and one of the things that we talked about is there's no timeline. There isn't that date where like you should be over this by now. Probably we're never over it. Maybe we're in a better place. Maybe we have more acceptance, but there's no timeline. And I don't think that enough people give themselves permission to use a different timeline than somebody else for the same person. You do it, when you do it. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about digitizing photos and video because that is one of your businesses. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, a couple years ago, our church celebrated a 100-year celebration from when they were incorporated and started the our church was 2 other churches that combined to create Concordia. And so we were doing the 100-year celebration for the church, and they knew that I did videos as part of my business because I create videos for my artistic solutions now. I have a YouTube channel for it, and I s- videotape myself spray painting, and then I put it in fast forward so you can see it come together fast and 3 minutes or something. So they knew I did videos, so they had asked me to do a video for the 100-year celebration. And I'm like, "Sure, I'll send you a file, just drop the pictures in there." And they're like, they're in totes. They're not digital." I'm like, "Well, I did agree to do this." So I had to find a way to digitize everything. And because I digitized so many of my family things, we digitized slides, VHS tapes, photos. But they asked me the best way to store them. And I'm like, well, I have no idea. It's not what I do. So I did a bunch of research and I talked to people all over the country. What does your church do for saving these things? And like nobody really had an answer. They're like, well, they really don't have a plan right now. And I'm like, okay. So I kept doing research and I found forever.com. And it is really the best deal out there that I've found. And forever.com can digitize pretty much anything like that, any VHS tapes, 8 millimeter reels, slides, and put it into digital format. And you can get it on like a thumb drive or you can store it digitally with them. And the nice thing about Forever is if you go to like Google, a lot of people save their photos in Google Photos and that sort of thing right from their phone. And so a lot of those you end up using so much space that you need to buy more storage and it's like a rental fee. So like it's like 199 a month or 999 a month or whatever to store things with them, but with forever.com you buy it once and it's yours. And they're very reasonably priced and so you choose who has access to it. You choose when to share it. Like I can create a folder and share it with you.
Mhm.
And or, I send it to my cousins. I've scanned all the stuff from my mom's side of the family. I send it to my mom's cousins and that sort of thing. I can share it directly with them and I can let them upload to it as well from their phone or whatever. And one of the nice things about it is you buy the storage and it's yours for your lifetime plus 100 years. So in my account, I set it up so that if anything were to happen to me, my sisters have access to it.
Gotcha.
Anything happens to them, my niece has access to it.
Right.
So You can choose who has access to it, upon your death right away or a year after your death, so and so can access it. You get to choose. And it's fabulous to have that assurity that my family story is preserved for at least 100 years or more. I found through a lot of the research I've done for my family to figure out who's in photos, I have some pretty cool relatives. So, like, one of my uncles actually played basketball game against the Harlem Globetrotters. And that's really cool if you know that my uncle's like 5 foot.
Wait a minute, because, well, first of all, Spud Webb played basketball. I think he played in Atlanta. He was like known for being like 4 or something like that. So there's hope for everyone. Wait a minute. I want to go back to this for a second. Like every kid dreamed of getting to go see the Harlem Globetrotters play. And I think I did like at least once or twice, maybe 3 times. If the team that they always play is the Washington
Generals, yep. Yep,
Generals,
I
right.
think of
Does that mean he played for them, or it was just like a pickup game somewhere?
it was a charity event, and I think it was in Halstead or Hendrum, one of the towns around here, and it was the alumni from the school that was playing. This was back in, like, the '70s or something, and so the alumni from the school came to play a charity game against the Harlem Globetrotters.
I love that.
And so at Easter, I asked my uncle about that because 'cause I'm like, "I remember dad saying something about the Harlem Globetrotters. Did you really play with them?" And he's like, "Yeah, we played against them." And he told us a story. This guy looked over, he was standing next to one of them, and he, like, looks over, and then he looks down, and he's like, "Where's the other half of you?"
You know what? Some of us are not tall.
I
One of those people myself.
me too. I'm, like, 5'2", so I understand. Yeah, I have some really cool relatives. You talked about, your father had, alcohol issues. I'm also a recovering alcoholic.
My dad had crack issues. You know what? I've never seen my father drink alcohol ever in my life. Never. I have seen him with a crack pipe though. So you understand what it's to be in recovery.
I do, but I also learned that pretty much my entire family exists because of an alcoholic.
Okay, now I'm gonna need more. And that's because
My great-grandfather, um, and my great-grandmother moved their entire family to Montana
Mhm.
because my great-grandfather had bought a bar, but unfortunately, he drank away most of the profits,
You hear
and
stories like that.
unders. Like my uh, grandpa and grandma were going to move back to this area, which is Minnesota, and my grandfather and his brother said, "No, we're staying here." And because they did that, and they stayed with another relative that they had out there, that was why my grandpa and grandma met. So if it wasn't for them moving to Montana to buy a bar that went under, they may not have ever met. So
So in Hebrew, we use the word Besheret. I actually have it in script on my wrist. And Besheret biblically or in like old Hebrew means predestined. And it's usually in reference to your forever person. You know, your spouse, your wife, your husband. But more commonly now, it's kind of like taken on it's meant to be. You know, whether that's meeting someone, doing something, falling into a situation. And I believe that there aren't a lot of accidents. I believe that that fate does play a role in all of this. Everyone in my life is supposed to be here for a reason. There may be times where I'm like, are you sure this person is supposed to be in my life? Because right now, I don't like how this is rolling, but there's going to be something that comes from that, whether it's a lesson or a learning or things get better. So for sure, it was Besheret for your grandparents to meet in that very way, for sure. Oh my gosh, I love that. So tell me a little bit more about Forever, because I think for a lot of people, it's overwhelming just to look at stacks and I think for a lot of people there are photos in boxes and crates and envelopes and folders and in all of the places.
Those photo albums that your grandmother used to have on the table.
So do you do your own scanning, or is that something you can send in like some of the other services?
I used to do the scanning. I used to do scanning for people, but Forever has state of the art equipment and their facilities they use. I mean, I've seen them in like the doctor's attire, with gloves. And I mean, they handle everything with such care because they know that it's family history and it's your family's photos. So I send things in now. I always send them into Forever and I store it in Forever as well. And one of the things that I do as a Forever ambassador is I help people choose the options that work best for them. Because, like for me, I had over 5,000 photos already scanned. So to upload 5,000 photos, I needed to use a valet service. And so I purchased the valet service and uploaded everything much easier that way than doing 100 pictures at a time or whatever.
Sure.
I also purchased the facial recognition software that they have. So, like, I can go to my cousin or my aunt or my mom or my sister, and I have all the photos of them in one spot. So that's a really great option that they have. That's what I do. I help people decide. I help people decide how to organize them because some people want everything by the holiday or they want everything by the person or so I help people decide what they really need and get them started on it. And they can also hire me to do it. Really one of those things that's a never ending process. And so if um you set aside and do like 10 minutes when you're having a glass of wine after supper, you know, um when you're having your morning coffee, sit down and organize photos for 10 minutes. It's a never ending process and just have to start doing it because if you don't start doing it, those boxes that are staring at you, those totes, I'm still going through the totes and I've been doing it for 10 years. And there's times that I go through them faster and there's times that I don't. But the fact is that if I hadn't started, I would have lost all those pictures that were in boxes. I would have lost the pictures of my grandfather. One of my favorite pictures of my grandpa, he's standing in front of his mail truck. My grandfather did many different jobs. He had 7 kids and he had to keep them fed. So he did many different jobs over the years. And he was a mail delivery person for a little while. And he had this mail truck and it had the huge tires, like a monster truck in today's day and age. This was back before they had monster trucks. There's a picture of him in front of this, like, monster truck looking thing, and he's standing there with this, male outfit, this big cap on because it was winter, but it's one of my favorite pictures of my grandfather is he had a monster truck before they were cool.
He was ahead of his time. What I also love about that is that I think often our favorite photos aren't the ones that think people would think would be our favorite photos, like the one where you look perfect in, it's not. It's like the funny moments of life and I love all those things. I think part of it is wanting to feel connection. Right? And so I probably shouldn't have recorded in my office. I should have recorded in the dining room because my dining room has shelves of photos behind the table. And the pictures go back to my great grandparents, pictures of both of my grandmother's weddings or grandparents' weddings. And so there are people in the photos I have never met. But I still find them incredibly important. One, because I wouldn't be here had it not been for those people, even though they didn't meet in a bar. They met in other places. But I think that, we have an attachment to photos because for so many of us, we're looking for connection. And I don't know about you, but we can only trace our families back so far. And so to have, that is very powerful. I think one of the other things is I often tell people, don't just have pictures of people. We hang on to a lot of things that we probably would have benefited from just taking a photograph of and then having that for posterity or for history. We don't have to have the thing, especially if the thing takes up a lot of room. And I'm going to go back to being that person who lives in a New York City apartment. And you have to be very intentional with what you choose to keep and let go of. And the things that you choose to let go of, someone else would be like, "Oh my God, I would keep that," and vice versa. And I think that's an incredibly valuable way to look at, whether or not you're keeping things. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot recently as a family is hurrying up and getting videos of the oldest people in our families. I'm not sure if this was before or after we had spoken last, but we had our videos digitized, and there's a video of my grandmother that I had never seen before, and I found out later that my cousins hadn't seen it either, and it was a video that was made of her days before she died. And I knew that it existed, and so in the Jewish religion, someone dies, you sit shiva, you spend, time with the family for days, and they played the video. My older daughter at the time wasn't even 2 yet, and I think I probably didn't sit and watch because I knew she was gonna be a disturbance, and so I finally watched it, and what had happened was she had a nightmare, and she had nightmare that she was gone, and she was, like, watching or looking at our Shiva, and everyone was crying, of course, but it really bothered her. Like, she didn't want people to mourn. She was in a place where she had been very ill, was very uncomfortable, couldn't live the life that she enjoyed living. She was at peace with going, even if we weren't at peace with losing her, and I wish that there was more in the video. Like, I wish the video had been taken before she was in so much pain, and like, I didn't need it to be like a last will and testament. Oh, Melanie, this, and this. Like, my name would have been enough. I also would have loved to have heard more stories. And so the conversation has been, let's hurry up and videotape our parents while they're still here so they can tell stories. And then it's not my memory of the way they told the story, but actually the way they told the story. And I'm saying this because I want everybody listening to know it is incredibly powerful to have those videos later. My father, after my grandmother, he was like, I have to videotape my father. And with him, he got him to tell a little bit of the story. Tell me what it was like escaping Russia during the Russian Revolution. Tell me about traversing Europe and getting to the United States. And these stories are incredibly powerful because I will tell you, all along, we thought he came through New York and he came through Boston. I
Really?
spent hours when Ellis Island digitized everything, and you can look up, online. His name was Reuben Liss. I spelled Reuben 5 different ways. I spelled Liss 5 different ways. And how many different ways can you spell Liss? Okay. And then he went by Bob. So I did Bob. And then I thought, well, maybe they got it wrong. Maybe they said Robert or something like I could not find the man. Years later, years later. It was probably less than a decade based on the timing, and he's telling a story about going to Boston, and I was like, "Oh my god, a day I'll never get back." I spent an entire day trying to find you, and so it can be very powerful to hear those stories later and to be able to pass, those stories on as told by the person who, lived and experienced it. Okay, so I have to ask because you have such a Scandinavian last name, where are they from before they got to Minnesota?
I am half Norwegian and half Swede. My dad was a full-blooded Swede and my mom was a full-blooded Norwegian. So, my dad actually tracked, relatives back to Norway and Sweden. And through forever, I've been doing some of that as well, following the family history
Mhm.
because they do have Forever does have a genealogical side to it as well that you can get help or have people research for you, things like that. So that is one of the services they offer as well. But, I've been doing my own family research through can't remember which one I use, Family Tree or something,
Right. Uh,
but tracking the family history.
that's great. That's great. Have you been to Sweden and Norway?
No, my dad and mom had went to, Sweden, to meet his relatives that he had tracked down, actually the year, 9/11. They flew out of New York that morning, several hours before 9/11 happened.
Everybody has I mean, like, I'm a New Yorker, so we have so many connections
So
to the towers and to the flights and everything. Everyone is somehow connected that day, and that's amazing that they got to go back there. I hope that you get a chance to go at some point.
I would like that someday, yeah. So it's
Amazing.
been fascinating to learn family history and to learn the strength that is in my own gene pool. You know,
Mm,
as a person that started my own business from home during a pandemic, a lot of us who run online businesses are like the pioneers of old time. You know, those men and women that rode the wagon train across the country. That's kind of what we're doing is we are finding a way to make things work in today's day and age, and it's not the conventional 9 to 5 job anymore. It's running your own business from home, or it's doing whatever is best for you at the time as far as it comes to. It's helped me to learn that I have a lot of strength of character in my family tree. You know, I can draw on those skills that are passed down through generations. The strength of that my family has shown over the years.
I love that. Okay, so you are here on the podcast about clutter. And so we talked a little bit about how do you manage, photo clutter, et cetera. But not everybody has physical clutter. Some people, the clutter is digital. For some people, it's mental. Some people, it's emotional. And I warned you, I ask every guest, what is your clutter? So, what would you say the clutter is in your life?
The clutter in my life, I have been sorting through it a lot this year. I have spent a year doing training and mental work, learning my own strength of character, learning what I am capable of doing and learning how to do it. My biggest clutter is not really believing in myself and believing how to say it, believing the stories in my head from when I was younger that were not necessarily true. Little things, and it's not one big thing. It's those little things. I have a sister that's 10 and a half months older than me. So the Irish twins or whatever you want to call it. I always felt like I was behind and I was never good enough. And that's not true. The fact is I had the honor of having somebody show me the way. And it's learning to reframe those things so that they're not holding me down anymore, but holding me up. That's what I've been learning this year, and that's how I've been learning to look at things a little bit differently because I can beat myself up better than anybody.
I think so many women out there are so good at it. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think the self limiting beliefs, because that's what you're addressing, are the self limiting beliefs, are probably the greatest amount of clutter that I see in working with people and talking to people. And one of the things that we talk about is how much of the way we perceive the world is based on things that happened to us before we were 7. Like our brains were not fully formed, but we were sucking in information, whether it's something that someone said to us directly or said about us that we overheard. And sure, by the age of 7, but by the age of 17, I was full of a whole lot of crap in my head that didn't belong there because I was listening to the people that were, I don't want to say in charge, but like the older people. Whether they were older by 10 and a half months or we're older by a decade or like parents or grandparents, that it sticks with us. And it's really hard to shovel that clutter out. I'm so happy to hear that you're doing the work on that this year. That's amazing. I think it's helpful for everyone to hear that, like, while my form of helping people declutter the mind may not be for everybody, there are people out there, there are coaches out there and therapists who do a really great job of helping people take out the head trash or take out the head clutter. That is really using those words, trash and clutter and garbage and all those things. But that's what it is. It's trash and garbage and all the things. So, Tag, you said that you have a special offer for our listeners. You want to share what that is?
Yes, I will send you a link that if you sign up for a Forever account, just to even look around. I mean, you put in your email and you confirm your email address, and you get 2 gigabytes of storage. So if you want to look around and see anything with that, there'll be a link for my calendar, and I can answer any questions that they have about Forever. I can help them find anything they need to find, learn how it works. And you can also get on my calendar at any time after that if you have questions. It's a little overwhelming looking at all those totes and boxes. What do you start with? Where do you start? I help people find that what will work for them. And that's the gift that I'm giving. Forever does that. When you sign up for an account, they give you the 2 gigabytes. So that is from Forever itself. With that, I am also offering my time to help people make decisions on what they need.
Amazing. That's so generous of you. I had a conversation with someone else recently, and one of the things that she was saying is like, I have the pictures from both sides of my family, and so many of them are so similar. And what it makes me think of is how, my parents are divorced. I don't have their wedding album. Who knows what happened to that? But I
Yeah.
have both of the parent albums. So I have the albums from both of my grandparents from my parents' wedding, so a smaller version of it. So they actually do have different things, but there are also ones that are exactly the same. Like, how many different photos do I need of my parents who are not married? I mean, at the end of the day, if that wedding had not happened, we would not be having this conversation right now because I wouldn't be here. So I'm happy they had a wedding. But like, how many of those photos do I actually need? They're in albums and they're pretty, so I'm leaving them for now. Yeah.
Well, and the nice thing about Forever is they have declutter feature. Like say you go to a birthday party and you take like 20 shots, but you only really want to save 1 or 2 of them. It has a declutter feature. So if they're taken within milliseconds of each other or in the same 10-minute period, it'll pop them all up and you can say which ones you want to save and which ones you don't.
A declutter feature. It's like, speaking my language. I'm sorry I interrupted. I was so excited.
I'm a digital person and I am a digital artist. So I have photos saved in Google and I have photos saved on a hard drive. Things you don't realize until you went into it that like hard drives can start deteriorating after 5 to 10 years. So if you've been saving photos for 20 years on the same hard drive, you may be losing them. But if I'm uploading from all those places, it will not take duplicates. There's a button on there where it will not upload a duplicate of the same picture. So that's a nice feature as well.
So for those of you who have been here for the whole episode, all of a sudden you're going to be like, why is the lighting quality terrible for Melanie right now? It's because I knocked over the ring light and I broke it. Anyway, that obviously is a message that we need to finish things up. So Tag, it has been such a pleasure having you here today. Such a unique story. You do great work. In the show notes, there are links to your website so we can see your art. And I can't wait. Like, I could just sit and watch videos like that all day long, whether it's someone cooking, someone decluttering, someone making art. I love watching the process of things being created. Tag, thank you so much for being here today. This has been great.
Thank you for having me. It's been fabulous talking to you.
You bet. Thanks. Thank you for listening to Lighten Up the Art of Living Clutter-Free. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use just a little bit of lightness. If you're ready for deeper support, you can work with me one-on-one or join my Lighten Up Clutter-Free Mindset Group program. You can find all the details at my website, thoughtfullycoaching.com. Until next time, progress over perfection. Messy action is better than no action at all. So let's lighten up.